Cindy Stockwell is the Chief Media Officer of Hill Holliday, an award-winning Boston-based agency. She oversees the agency's integrated media department, planning, buying, and analytics for Hill Holliday. Tons of incredible brands that you work with: Dunkin Donuts, Major League Baseball, Liberty Mutual, John Hancock, Cigna. Before this, you were the media director at Euro RSCG in Chicago. Worked with some great brands, P&G, Red Lobster. So I'm super excited that she's here, because often I feel like we don't have enough tactical information about how to make a difference in some of these big brands. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, and super interested in what you have to say. Thanks.
What's this?
I think this is the clicker. Do you have that one?
No, I have
okay.
this clicker.
Never
Thank
mind.
you. All right, thanks. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I am not going to talk to you in my underwear, so just set that straight. What I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about how national brands, especially in the retail sector, have started to use local media to better get at their target audience. One of the things that we say, America runs on Dunkin'. That's Dunkin' Donuts' tagline. But really, America can't run on Dunkin' unless Boston and Atlanta and Chicago and Phoenix run on Dunkin'. So we have to drive sales in local markets every single day and every single day part in order for Dunkin' to be successful. So I'm going to start with some overall trends in the media landscape. Just going to kind of whip through a few trends so that we can all level set on what we as marketers have to deal with now as we are talking to consumers. And the first slide here is more. Okay, more is what we are dealing with as marketers. There's more choices for us for advertising. Clients want to do more with less. There are just more and more opportunities, as this last panel indicated. And from consumer standpoint, they're getting hit with more advertising messages every day, and they are adopting technology faster and more easily than they ever had in the past. And in fact, consumers these days are more connected on more devices than they've ever been before. And the rate at which they're adopting new technology is in nanoseconds as opposed to in decades, the way it has been in the past. What we see is that the large percentage of Americans own laptops. They're on the internet, especially younger consumers. They have smartphones. We've reached that 50% plus mark where people have smartphones instead of feature phones. That means a lot in terms of apps and the mobile landscape, the mobile web and mobile search, and from a social perspective. We're seeing more and more adults own tablets. This holiday season was a real turning point in terms of tablet adoption. And that gives us just another component in terms of how to reach people in the digital space. We see a lot of internet-enabled TVs, and the fact that many homes now have video consoles. And that's important from the standpoint that people can now get television programming and internet content through those consoles. And that means that there's more online activity. There's more video viewing, there's more shopping, there's more social networking, and there's significantly more app use. More devices mean that there's more multitasking as well. And in fact, if we added up all the multitasking that the average American does, we would see that it adds 6 hours to the average day. Okay, so people are multitasking 6 hours of every day. That's an hour more than it was in 2008. The reality is, though, people can't multitask. We all think we can, but nobody can. And in fact, our brain is a sequential processor, and what we are doing is actually switching focus. Okay, so as marketers, when they're multitasking, if they're watching television or something like that, and then they're looking at another screen, we're losing their focus. Digital natives, those that are 18 to 29-year-olds, actually switch focus 27 times per non-working hour. That's every other minute they're looking at different screens. So how do we as marketers break through in a world where our consumer base is distracted? How do we reach them in a way that's compelling to them and actually breaks through? First of all, there's a huge ecosystem of tools out there for us at our disposal, especially whether you're a national advertiser or whether you're a local advertiser. There's a ton of different ways that we can reach consumers. More and more, it becomes more important to make sure that we're not just relying on one channel to reach consumers, but we're actually layering those messages in ways that takes advantage of how people expect to use those channels. So I'm going to offer you 3 pieces of advice as a marketer, whether you're national or whether you're local. If you want to break through that distraction, the 3 things you need to do is you need to add value to the experience that consumers have within the channel. So you have to know how they use the channel, know what their expectations of that channel are, in order to add value instead of just interrupting them. The second is you want to drive choice. If you can get people to choose to interact with your message, it can be up to 27 times more effective than just throwing messages at them. So we've seen that with some of our own clients where when we can drive choice, we can drive greater effectiveness. And then the third thing is if you can provoke conversation. Okay, that's how messages become viral. And we've seen, again, that more and more people are more willing to recommend brands and to talk about brands and to reveal their allegiance to brands in the social space. So if you can provoke that conversation, you have an advocate that's willing to speak on your behalf. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some examples from some of our clients in terms of how we've been using local advertising to drive national brands. The first example I'm going to show you is actually a national example, but when the tape is finished running, I'll explain to you why I showed it to you.
The Sims' success in the PC world made it a smart bet for Dunkin', and the game itself was a natural fit. America already runs on Dunkin'. It was time to make The Sims run on Dunkin'. We knew that in order to be successful, we needed to embed Dunkin' into the gameplay in a meaningful way. We began the partnership by building off one of the most basic and commonly used actions within the game: gifting. Real products like Dunkin' Coffee, iced coffee, donuts, and breakfast sandwiches were reimagined for the Sims social universe. Just as Dunkin' Donuts helps fuel you through your day in the real world, our Dunkin' products in the Sims Social gave players energy points to do more. Build bigger houses, get new furniture, pull weeds, and whatever else social gamers wanted to do. Because these items were valuable to gameplay and giftable, the content was highly shareable on Facebook.
So although that was a national example, mobile devices like smartphones and tablets have driven social gaming to incredibly high heights, as well as app gaming. And what we've learned from this experience is that the more we can embed brands into content of games, the more that you can add value to the gaming experience, the better. And you can do this on a local level as well as on a national level. Other things that we're doing with our brands is we're using location. So using location to add value to the experience. If someone's going to click through an ad, let's automatically give them the closest location because we know where they are. Now, we're going to show you some of these things in the digital spaces, but think about all the screens you see around you as you go about your day. You see screens in bars and in malls and in train stations. These same things are actually available to you on all those screens as well. For home goods, I heard somebody up here speaking about video and being able to buy video in the digital environment on a local basis. That's what we do for home goods. We run their video in appropriate places. We do it through DSP buying or platform buying where we can buy it very efficiently. And we're able to, knowing where people are, knowing where we're reaching them, we're able to overlay the closest location of the home goods store. We see great increases in video completion rates and viewership when we do these types of overlays. Working with the Weather Channel, we have a client called Great Wolf Resorts. Great Wolf Resorts is a chain of indoor water park hotels. It's always 84 degrees and sunny in a Great Wolf Resort. So what we do is we work with the Weather Channel to, in each of our markets, overlay the name of the market and the current weather conditions so that we can juxtapose the great weather in a Great Wolf Resort with the current weather that may not be so great in the market. In the local mobile search, again, this panel prior to me talked about local mobile search. We worked with Telenav to be able to provide turn-by-turn directions to the closest store, in this case for TJ Maxx, again, because we know where they are, we know where they're going. Social search. There's a mobile app called Waze that is a social search app. And what social search means is that as people are searching, people are able to provide comments and feedback and additional information along the way that helps enhance that user experience. For Supercuts in LA, we wanted to be synergistic with the Supercuts Camp creative message, which was about rocking the cut. So we worked with Pandora in Los Angeles to create a custom station that only has Supercuts advertising on it and not a lot of it. But again, this is another way where we're able to add value and drive choice. And finally, local offers. Again, the panel before mine talked about offers. Dunkin has a mobile app where they're able to push out offers to consumers. And once this is linked with a loyalty program, we're going to be able to push out offers that are custom to what you as an individual typically buy at Dunkin'. It will push out offers that will try to get you into a new day part or into a new product category. Right now, these offers are just customized by market. But we've seen really good usage of the app and really good redemption of the coupons. I'm going to let, oh, this isn't, no sound. All right, so.
I run on Dunkin' Ice.
Medium French vanilla.
Ice caramel.
Mocha for me.
Connecticut runs on Dunkin'.
So that was an example of taking a national ad. We have a campaign called What Are You Drinking for Dunkin'? And it's all about people expressing their love of the brand. And we've taken that and we've worked with television stations and radio stations across the country to actually localize that. That's done as added value for us. And what they do is they either take iconic locations in their market or they take well-known local celebrities and they create these ads for us that are these local folks expressing their love of the brand within the market. That's worked really well to help a national brand have a true local feel. And then we've taken that and we've actually activated that in the social space as well. We've invited people, everyday lovers of the brand, to express via Facebook their love of the brand through these bubble submissions. And to date, we've got about 26,000 bubble submissions. So, as I said to start out, there are just many, many, many more choices out there for us as marketers. And again, I think, as you've seen, I think there's tons of ways for us to start customizing and making things more relevant to people on a local level. So I'm happy to answer any questions, if you have any questions, but thank you.
That was great. That was great. Let's can we pass around the mics, actually? Why don't we sit here in the, somewhere in the middle? So I'm curious. So you saw the first panel that we did, and do you think it's first? Do you think that's true? Do you think these advertisers are asking for more of these kind of mobile social campaigns from your perspective?
Absolutely, especially retail advertisers. And I think because location is so important to retail advertisers, being able to reach people in market when they're close to point of purchase, being able to gather advocacy from people, that is absolutely the best way. I can push out every message all the time, but if you get a message from a friend of yours that is advocating for a brand, there's a lot more trust involved in that because you are an independent third party that they trust.
So one of the things that you had in your presentation that I thought was fascinating is that, I assume this has to do with social media, is that you can actually drive some of these conversations and get people to talk about brands. Can you give us a couple of examples of campaigns that you've designed or ones that you've been involved in where you basically were able to drive a message like that into the kind of water cooler?
Sure. I think our greatest example is with Liberty Mutual, which is a national example, but it's all about, I think, making sure that the brand has content that people want to interact with. So for Liberty Mutual, their tagline is responsibility, what's your policy? And the Responsibility Project is a hub of content that is accessed from all over the web, from many, many different sources. There's original films on there, as well as links to content out in the world, debates, polls, etc., that really deals with responsibility and tries to get a conversation going about responsibility. What we found, the only way we drive to that is via search, and what we found is that that is Liberty Mutual's single most effective means for converting people from prospects to buyers.
It's totally fascinating, because if I had to guess, I would never have guessed you would have picked an insurance company as an example of someone that can drive conversations. I mean, that seems pretty hard.
It is, because it's a category that people don't care about, that they don't care about it until they need it, and then when they need it, they are not usually very happy.
Yep.
But it is also a category that when people are in the market for it, if you don't get into their consideration set, and that consideration set is usually only 4 companies deep, you will not make the buy.
So we get this question a lot here, and we definitely have our own opinions on it, but I'd love to hear yours. Like, what works? Like, if you were going to recommend 2 or 3 things, or whatever things you'd recommend to an advertiser that's national and looking to localize, like Dunkin Donuts is a great example. What are some things that actually work for an advertiser that resonates with them?
So, an advertiser like Dunkin', it's going to be different. I have to preface this, it's going to be different for every category. An advertiser like Dunkin' that is interested in driving spontaneous purchase, the number one thing for them is radio, to be perfectly honest. So it's an old-time medium, but it is the number one thing. People are in their car, and we want them to get out of their car and get into a Dunkin'. What we're seeing, though, in this new landscape is that mobile is critically important, especially mobile search, and especially in markets outside of the Northeast, where we aren't on every single corner. For other advertisers like a TJ Maxx or a Marshalls, television works really hard for them, but social is critically important. If you think about a TJ Maxx, they have a natural word of mouth. There are people who love that brand, and then there are people who don't understand that brand. So if we can have the people who love that brand help us convince the people who don't understand that brand, it's going to work much harder for us.
So in the case of Dunkin', and actually, I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was at City Search, we tested a whole bunch of things to drive people to the website. You know what the thing that worked the best was? Radio, by far.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we did everything from paid search when that started off to display advertising to buying pixels on Google, and the thing that we could see it every day, do it in the morning, and they'd come in.
Yep.
It's pretty fascinating. But let's talk about the redemption piece. So if you're going to do a campaign like Dunkin', where you're going to say, come in and try this coffee or the new latte or whatever it is, how are they tracking the redemption back through when you show it in the mobile device? Like, how does that experience work?
Yep. So right now it is all tracked back through a point-of-sale system that allows us to see how many redemptions we have in any individual store, in any individual market.
So the coupon comes out of the point-of-sale system, because it's all going to be kind of at least somewhat one-to-one marketing. They're going to know that I need to come in and try something different.
So when we're able to link it to the loyalty program, we'll know your particular purchase history, because if you're using the app, that is linked to your card, and therefore it's linked to your account.
Got it.
And then we will know if you are somebody who comes in every day and you get a cup of coffee, but you never get an accompaniment with it, your coupon will be about get your coffee and get half off a breakfast sandwich.
And do consumers like that, or do they think it's kind of big brotherish, creepy?
I think there's a portion of consumers that like it and a portion of consumers that don't. But those who don't won't give us their information.
They're not in the loyalty program anyway.
Exactly.
How big is their loyalty program?
Right now it's in its infancy, but we have 1.8 million downloads of the app. So the goal is to link every single one of those downloads to the loyalty program.
And what are some of the things that work getting consumers to use the loyalty program?
The thing that works the best is getting them in via some discounts, and then giving them offers that are relevant to them. Everybody wants to save money, frankly, and the more we can do that, the more we can say thank you for your business by rewarding that behavior, the better off.
So I hear this a lot because I spend a lot of time in Silicon Valley, and I think in the last probably 2 years, I must have talked to 50 to 100 loyalty companies. And all startups, all trying, some similar kind of thing, right? And it seems like to get traction in something like that isn't going to come from a really small company with $3 to $5 million of capital. It's going to come from these large national brands driving these programs through their existing point-of-sale networks. Do you agree with that, or have you seen things that are coming up from the startup community that are interesting that you are dabble with that you might try?
So we have an organization at Hill Holliday called Project Beacon, where we work with startups, it's not so much about investing in startups as helping to identify startups that we think have a unique point of difference, helping to mentor them in a way that will allow them to bring their product to market in a way that's relevant to marketers, to get our clients in on the ground floor of some of those opportunities from a spending perspective and a trial and perspective. So, by and large, I think right now, bigger companies have the leg up. But, we've seen so many interesting technologies that start as nothing take off because they have a different point of difference that really hits on a consumer need.
Tell us a couple of those that you thought are interesting.
So actually, I think, I forget what some of them are, but Flutter, you mentioned up there, you showed up there, is one that I think is doing some interesting things in the social space. Waze, which I mentioned, which is an app that is about social GPS, basically, allowing people to help each other find their way through traffic situations, etc.
Super popular where I live in Los Angeles, where dinner conversation is all about how you got to where you were, or where you are.
I think Nanigans was another one we worked with, and they were about helping acquire fans in the social space in a different way. So we worked with them for a while. So there's a number.
So there are a lot that you actually, do your clients appreciate that you're servicing these activities, or do they have these businesses, or do they have their own kind of people that do that too?
Oh no, they appreciate it very much so. For Dunkin, this year at one of the big conferences in Boston that deals with innovation called MyTex, we had a panel actually for Dunkin where we invited, prior to the conference, we invited folks to submit proposals, all startups to submit proposals in terms of how they would work with Dunkin, given a set of objectives and concerns. We narrowed it down to 3. They came and they sat on a panel and they proposed their ideas to Dunkin, to actually the VP of marketing, and we chose one for Dunkin to work with, and we're in the process of working with them right now.
Can you tell us who that is, or is it a secret?
I wish I could remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
What kind of company was it? How about that? What do they do?
It's a company that uses image recognition to help you kind of find things in the real world. So take a picture of a Dunkin' coffee cup, and you will then be directed to a suite of content, but you'll also be directed to potentially a coupon, the nearest location, etc.
Yep.
So
That's
using
very clever.
physical objects to help you find.
And how many proposals did you guys get in total for something like this?
We got about...
1 million?
No, we didn't. We got less than 100.
Really?
Yeah, less than 100.
I'm surprised. I would think there would be a lot of startups that would want to work with someone like a Dunkin Donuts.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we were to do it again, which I think we're going to this year, I would imagine that the number of proposals will increase.
So how many of your clients are asking for mobile these days? Do they start, what is the thing that they start off when a new client comes? How about that? What do they come to you for?
Oh,
I think I know the end goal, but they come with some, I guess what I'm getting at is they come with some preconceived notion about, I'm sure about we have this, or we need to be in mobile, or we need to be in search, or whatever it is. What do they lead with these days?
Again, it depends on what kind of company they are and what their objectives are, but by and large, people want to understand how to stay in front of new technology, because technology is just, happening faster and furious much more so that they, as marketers, can keep up with. And they have to navigate their way through all of these opportunities and options, and what should they focus on, what should they be spending their time on, where should they put their attention. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
So do you give them a list of things that they should ignore? Do you ever have those conversations? Because I feel like I do that a lot, which is like, just, you know what, don't worry about those things.
What we try to do for them is every year we put together something called the media landscape for that year, where we identify the trends, we take a look at the things that we think our clients by and large need to pay attention to. We give them some thoughts about what they need to think about as they go into planning for the next year, and we try to focus them that way.
So I like the Dunkin Donuts example because, you know, I grew up here in the Northeast, so I'm super familiar with Dunkin Donuts, and then I moved to Texas and then to California, where there was none at all. And now I know there's a big expansion plan to put Dunkin Donuts in all these places, so you have a very different purview in the marketing. It's like the Northeast is established, already clients, Texas none, California very few. Like, so you actually have to do like very, very different campaigns. Give us a sense for like what you do in Boston. I think you said radio, but like what are some of the new things that you might try to build the brand and acquire new customers?
So Dunkin, for all markets, we do a national television and a national display effort. Because that way we can provide ground cover for every market, no matter how big or how small. And then as we go into local markets, what is the objective in that local market? So a smaller market that doesn't have Dunkins on every corner, location is going to become even more important, right? So we'll use mobile technology, we'll use out-of-home technology, we'll do these overlays that I showed you, where we're able to overlay information about the closest Dunkin' Donuts to them. We'll drive more offers, and the offers will be different. So in this market, you will never, ever, ever get an offer on coffee, okay? You won't, because this market is a highly developed coffee market.
I get those. It says you've only had 14 cups of coffee so far today, you should go get some more.
Exactly. But in a market like Dallas, where it's a donut market, you're going to get an offer on coffee. You're not going to get an offer on donuts. So it's things like that that will, and then in Chicago, which is kind of in the middle, you're going to get an offer on a +1 because they want to start driving that +1 behavior.
Okay. So let's talk about social for a second. Everyone was super excited about social. A bunch of brands rushed into it. They tried a bunch of stuff. Didn't really seem to work. And there was a slew of announcements over, well, just at the close of last year, pulling all our ad spend out of Facebook, not spending money on social anymore. GM was a big one, car companies. And, you know, there was an argument that was made, which is reasonable. It's like, well, maybe these things they're like AOL was circa 1998, right? Walled garden, seems great, lots of people, but in the end, can't sell anything on it. What's your perspective on that?
So our perspective is that big social campaigns that are a moment in time are a waste of money. That the best way to interact with your customers on social is a continuous presence that adds value every day. And I would say my favorite example in social is not one of our clients, actually, it's Oreo. And for a year, Oreo, to their group of fans...
Can you say that your favorite campaign is not one you did?
I can. In the social space, I can. They sent, every day, they sent an image out to their fans that used the product, the Oreo product, in some unique and interesting way that tied in with something that was going on in culture that day. And sometimes that thing going on in culture was really random, and sometimes it was a big deal thing. So for instance, for celebration of Gay Pride, it was an Oreo that had all the colors of Gay Pride as the cream. For Elvis's birthday, it had an Oreo where the top was Elvis's pompadour, so that you could kind of get the sense of what that was. And every day it was something different. That was just a little bit of fun for their fans. And it was a way for them to interact with their fans every day. And I can't tell you how many comments they got. Prior to doing it, they had about, I would say, probably around 2,000-3,000 comments a day on what they sent out. During the course of this, they were seeing 14,000, 15,000 comments on some of the more interesting ones. They were seeing a lot of shares of this content. That is a much better way to use social than to run this giant program that lives for a moment in time that you spend a lot of money on.
So that's interesting. So I guess when I think about that from a business perspective, that suggests that Facebook ads will not be nearly as successful as building ongoing campaigns on the Pages product.
Yeah, what Facebook ads help you do is, especially promoted posts. Promoted posts allow you to amplify what your fans are saying about you. So getting back to that, if you see something from a friend, you're more likely to have trust in that than if you see something pushed out from a brand. Promoted posts allow brands to do that in a way that doesn't look like advertising. So those we actually have some heart for. And the other thing that advertising on Facebook allows us to do is allows us to increase our fan base so that when we are talking to our fans more organically, there's more of them.
So we're almost out of time. Give us some closing thoughts on what you think we're going to see end of this year, end of the following year. Like, what are some trends that most people probably are not thinking about?
So social TV is a big trend. People commenting and talking about programming and helping actually to drive a little bit of the story in television, I think, is a big thing. It started, I would say, a few of the networks like Bravo has done a really good job of sort of promoting conversation around their shows, but you're going to see that happen much more broadly. The ability to interact with things out in the world via your mobile phone is ready to take off. It's all over Europe right now. Being able to interact with out-of-home spaces, interact with screens that you see out in the world, all of that is happening right now in Europe, and that technology
it's going to come here in the next 2 years, for sure, like the Tesco example.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. You're going to be here to answer questions from people if they have questions?
I'll be here for about another hour.